Have you ever wondered where belief comes from? Not a specific religion, but the very act of believing in something beyond what we can see and touch. It's a question that takes us back to the dawn of humanity, to a time when our ancestors faced a world full of danger and uncertainty. Today, we're going on a journey to uncover the first sacred act and explore why humans began to believe. Let's travel back in time, maybe 100,000 years ago. Imagine you're an early human. The world is a terrifying place. A sudden storm could wipe out your family. A predator could be lurking behind any rock. Food is scarce, and survival is a daily struggle. In this constant state of fear and uncertainty, the human brain did something remarkable. It began to see patterns everywhere. This is a core survival mechanism. If you see rustling in the grass and assume it's a predator, you run. If you're wrong, you've just wasted a little energy. But if you're right, you've just saved your life. Our brains are hardwired to make these connections, to assume there's a reason, a cause, for every effect. This tendency is called agenticity, the inclination to believe that the world is controlled by invisible agents, by conscious beings. A sudden gust of wind wasn't just wind. It was the breath of an unseen spirit. A bolt of lightning wasn't just static discharge, it was a sign of anger from a sky god. This pattern-seeking mind was fertile ground for the seeds of belief. When our ancestors couldn't explain something, a drought, a successful hunt, a sudden illness, they attributed it to these invisible forces. It was a way of making sense of a chaotic world. It gave them a feeling, however small, of understanding and control. If a spirit was angry, maybe you could do something to appease it. And this is where the first sacred act emerges: ritual. Long before organized religion, before priests and holy books, came ritual. Think about it. If you believe a river spirit controls the fish, what do? Maybe you offer it a beautiful stone. Maybe you sing a song by the water's edge. You perform an action, hoping to influence the outcome. If the next day you have a great catch, your brain connects the dots. The ritual worked. These early rituals weren't complex theological ceremonies. They were simple, instinctive acts. A specific dance before a hunt, placing flowers on a grave, arranging stones in a particular pattern. These actions had no direct physical impact on the world, but they had a profound psychological one. They reduced anxiety. They provided a sense of agency in a world that felt completely out of control. Performing a ritual made people feel like they were doing something, anything, to secure a better future. Archaeological evidence supports this. We find ancient burial sites where bodies were carefully positioned, sometimes with tools, ornaments, or red ochre pigment sprinkled over them. This wasn't just a practical way to dispose of a body. It suggests a belief in an afterlife, a journey that the deceased needed provisions for. It was a ritual born from grief and the hope that death was not the end. We see cave paintings that aren't just pretty pictures of animals. Some scholars believe they were part of hunting rituals, attempts to magically capture the spirit of the prey to ensure a successful hunt. These rituals, repeated over and over, became traditions. They were passed down from one generation to the next. And as our social groups grew larger, these shared rituals did something incredibly powerful. They bound people together. Imagine a small group of early humans. They all believe in the same forest spirit. They all perform the same dance to ask for its protection. This shared belief and practice creates a powerful sense of us. It builds trust and cohesion. You know that the person next to you shares your understanding of the world, your fears, and your hopes. This is a massive evolutionary advantage. A group that is tightly bonded through shared rituals is much more effective than a group of individuals who are just looking out for themselves. They can cooperate on a massive scale. They can hunt large game together, defend against rival groups, and share resources during tough times. The rituals weren't just about managing fear. They were the social glue that held societies together. This process of meaning-making is what makes us human. We don't just exist in the world, we interpret it. We create stories to explain why things are the way they are. These stories, these shared beliefs, became the foundation of culture, morality, and eventually, organized religion. The belief in a judging deity or ancestral spirits who watch over you encourages pro-social behavior. If you believe you'll be punished for stealing or rewarded for sharing, you're more likely to act in a way that benefits the group. So the first sacred act wasn't a grand revelation from the heavens. It was something much more grounded, much more human. It was born from the fear of a dangerous world, nurtured by our pattern-seeking minds, and expressed through simple rituals. These rituals gave our ancestors a sense of control and, crucially, bound them together into cooperative groups that could not only survive but thrive. From that first offering left at a riverbank, that first dance under the moon, a chain of events was set in motion that would shape the entire course of human history. The capacity for belief, for seeing meaning beyond the material world, is not some strange quirk of our species. It's a fundamental part of our evolutionary toolkit. It's what allowed us to move from small, scattered bands of hunter-gatherers to building the complex civilizations we see today. The next time you see a modern religious ceremony, or even a secular ritual like a graduation or a national anthem, remember its ancient roots. You're seeing a modern expression of that same fundamental human impulse, to find meaning, to manage uncertainty, and to connect with each other in a shared vision of the world. It all started with that first tentative sacred act. Have you ever wondered where our ideas about heaven, the underworld, or reincarnation come from? For tens of thousands of years, humans have grappled with the ultimate mystery. What happens after we die? The fascinating thing is, the answers aren't just found in ancient texts or religious scriptures. They're buried right under our feet, in the graves of our earliest ancestors. The story of the afterlife begins not with words, but with actions. It starts with the simple, yet profound, act of intentional burial. Imagine this. 100,000 years ago, a group of early humans gathers. One of their own has passed away. Instead of leaving the body to the elements, they do something remarkable. They dig a grave. They carefully place the body inside, perhaps in a specific position, like curled up on its side as if sleeping. This isn't just about hygiene or getting rid of a body. This is a deliberate, thoughtful act. Archaeologists see this as one of the first glimmers of symbolic thought related to death. By burying their dead, our ancestors were making a statement. This person mattered. Their physical form deserved respect and protection, even after life had left it. It suggests they saw death not as a final end, but as a transition. The body was no longer just a body. It was a vessel that once held a person, a member of their community, and that connection wasn't something to be simply discarded. This is the very first chapter in our long quest to understand what lies beyond. Now let's look closer at what's inside these ancient graves. It's rarely just the bones. We find what archaeologists call grave goods. These are objects intentionally placed with the deceased. What kind of objects? All sorts of things. In some Stone Age burials, we find meticulously crafted flint tools, a hunter's most valuable possession. In others, we see strings of beads made from shells or animal teeth, items that took hours to create. We even find animal bones, suggesting offerings of food for a journey. One of the most famous examples is the Red Lady of Pavelin in Wales, which is actually the skeleton of a young man buried 33,000 years ago. He was covered in red ochre, a vibrant pigment, and buried with jewelry made of ivory. Why go to all this trouble? These weren't random trinkets. These grave goods tell us that our ancestors believed the deceased would need these items in whatever came next. A hunter would still need his tools. A respected individual would still wear their ornaments. Food would be needed for a long journey. This is concrete evidence for a belief in some form of continued existence. The afterlife wasn't just a vague idea. It was a real place, a destination for which one had to be equipped. It was a new world that mirrored the one they had just left. Beyond the practical items, some burial practices were purely symbolic, and they speak volumes about the emotional lives of our ancestors. Think about the use of red ochre, which I mentioned earlier. This pigment has been found in burials across the world for tens of thousands of years. Its blood-red color likely symbolized life, vitality, and perhaps even rebirth. By covering the deceased in it, were they trying to magically restore life, or to ensure their vitality in the next world? We also find bodies arranged in very specific ways. In a famous site in Russia called Sungir, 2 children were buried head-to-head about 24,000 years ago, adorned with thousands of mammoth ivory beads and spears. This wasn't a simple burial. It was a spectacular ritual. The care, the time, the artistry involved, it's breathtaking. These acts go beyond a simple belief in an afterlife. They reveal deep emotional bonds. This was about love, grief, and the powerful human need to honor those we've lost. The burial became a performance, a final beautiful act of remembrance for the entire community to witness. It was a way of processing loss and reaffirming the value of the individual. So when we put all these pieces together, the intentional graves, the practical grave goods, the symbolic rituals, a picture begins to form. We see our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were thinking, feeling, and believing. They were grappling with the same profound questions we do today. The grief of losing a loved one, a child, a partner, a friend, is a universal human experience. And in the face of that loss, they didn't see a void. They saw continuity. They imagined a world beyond the one they knew, a place where the spirit, or soul, continued to exist. This wasn't a fully formed religion with gods and complex mythologies just yet. It was something more fundamental, more instinctual. It was the birth of the idea that our identity, our essence, is not extinguished by death. The act of burial was a way to preserve the memory of the person. By creating a physical marker, a grave, they ensured the deceased would not be forgotten. The grave became a focal point for memory, a place where the living could return to connect with the dead, to tell their stories, and to keep their legacy alive. This connection between the living and the dead is the bedrock upon which all later concepts of the afterlife were built. Let's fast forward a bit. As societies grew more complex, so did their burial rituals and their visions of the afterlife. Look at the ancient Egyptians. They developed one of the most elaborate systems of belief about the journey after death ever conceived. For them, death was just a temporary interruption. The goal was to reunite the soul with the body to live eternally in a paradise called the Field of Reeds. This is why they went to such incredible lengths to preserve the body through mummification. The pyramids and the lavish tombs weren't just monuments to a pharaoh's power. They were resurrection machines, packed with everything a person could possibly need for eternity: food, furniture, games, boats, and even servants in the form of statuettes. The Book of the Dead was a guidebook, a cheat sheet filled with spells and passwords to help the deceased navigate the dangerous trials of the underworld and successfully reach the final judgment, where their heart would be weighed against a feather. This incredibly detailed vision shows how the early, simple ideas of continuity evolved into a complex spiritual and social framework that shaped an entire civilization. But the Egyptian way was just one path. In other parts of the world, different beliefs took root. In ancient Greece, the afterlife was often seen as a shadowy, less pleasant place, the realm of Hades. Most souls became listless shades, with no memory of their former lives. Burial was still crucial, but the focus was different. A proper burial, with a coin placed in the mouth to pay the ferryman Charon, was essential to ensure the soul could cross the river Styx and find its final resting place. An unburied soul was doomed to wander the earth as a restless ghost. Here, the ritual wasn't about equipping the dead for a glorious new life, but about ensuring a peaceful separation between the worlds of the living and the dead. It was about closure and preventing the dead from troubling the living. Meanwhile, in cultures that practiced ancestor worship, like in ancient China and many parts of Africa and the Americas, the dead never truly left. They remained active and influential members of the family and the community. They were seen as powerful intermediaries who could communicate with the gods and influence the fortunes of the living. Burial rituals and ongoing offerings were not just about honoring the dead, but about maintaining a good relationship with them. You would make offerings of food and drink, burn incense, and consult them for guidance. In this view, the line between life and death is blurred. The afterlife isn't a distant, separate realm. It's an invisible dimension that coexists with our own. The ancestors are always with us, watching, guiding, and participating in the life of the community. This demonstrates a powerful sense of an unbroken chain of existence, linking the past, present, and future together. So what does all of this tell us? It tells us that our fascination with what comes after death is one of the most ancient and defining characteristics of being human. From the earliest, simple burials in the Stone Age to the elaborate tombs of the pharaohs and the ongoing traditions of ancestor worship, we see a universal human need to find meaning in the face of mortality. We refuse to accept that death is the end. The grave is not just a hole in the ground, it's a portal. It's a testament to love, memory, and the enduring hope for continuity. These ancient rituals show us that for as long as we have been human, we have been speaking with our dead, caring for them, and imagining a future where we might one day meet again. The story of the afterlife is ultimately the story of humanity's enduring belief in the power of connection. A connection so strong that not even death can break it. Ever wondered why ancient civilizations, from the Aztecs to the early Greeks, practiced sacrifice? It seems brutal, even incomprehensible to us now. But what if I told you it wasn't just about pleasing angry gods? What if it was a powerful, and perhaps even logical, tool for survival in a world filled with chaos and uncertainty? Let's journey back in time, before the safety nets of modern society, to explore the dark yet fascinating world of ancient ritual sacrifice. Imagine living thousands of years ago. Your world is a terrifying place. Every storm, every drought, every sickness could wipe out your entire community. You have no scientific explanation for why the rains fail or why a plague sweeps through your village. All you have is the overwhelming feeling that you are at the mercy of powerful, unseen forces. In this world of crippling uncertainty, doing something, anything, feels better than doing nothing. This is where sacrifice begins. It's an attempt to impose order on chaos, to communicate with the forces that govern your existence. You offer something valuable, something precious, in the hope of influencing the outcome. Will this offering guarantee a good harvest? No. But in a world of powerlessness, it provides a sense of control, a belief that you can tip the scales in your favor. At the heart of many of these rituals were three potent elements: fire, animals, and pain. Fire is a primal force. It gives warmth and light, but it also destroys. In a ritual context, fire transforms. An offering placed in the flames doesn't just burn. It's sent upward, carried to the realm of the gods or spirits. The smoke becomes a visible prayer, a bridge between the human and the divine. Think about it. It's a tangible way to send a message to an intangible world. Then there are animals. Before agriculture became widespread, a domesticated animal was an immense store of wealth. It represented food, labor, and future prosperity. To sacrifice a prized bull or a healthy lamb wasn't just a symbolic act. It was a genuine economic loss. You were giving up a significant part of your livelihood. This act demonstrated the depth of your need and the seriousness of your request. It showed the gods, and just as importantly your neighbors, that you were willing to pay a real price for the well-being of the community. The blood spilled was a powerful symbol of life itself, a potent offering to the powers that give and take life. And finally, there's the element of pain. This is the most disturbing aspect for us today. From self-flagellation to more extreme forms of bodily harm, pain was often a central part of sacrificial rites. Why would anyone willingly inflict suffering upon themselves or others? In these early societies, pain was seen as a powerful purifying agent. It was a way to transcend the ordinary state of being and achieve a connection with the divine. The intense physical experience could induce altered states of consciousness, visions, and a profound sense of spiritual release. It was a testament to one's devotion. By enduring pain, a person proved their commitment was not superficial. This suffering was a sacred currency, a way of showing the gods you were willing to endure anything for their favor. So, if sacrifice wasn't always about a direct transaction with the gods, what other purpose did it serve? This brings us to a fascinating concept from social science: costly signaling. Think of it this way. Anyone can say they are committed to the group. Talk is cheap, but actions, especially costly ones, speak louder than words. A public ritual sacrifice is a massive, undeniable declaration of commitment. When the entire community gathers to witness the offering of something incredibly valuable, whether it's the chief's prize animal or, in extreme cases, a human life, it sends a powerful message. First, it signals to everyone within the group. By participating, individuals show their fellow tribe members that they are all in. They are willing to make personal sacrifices for the collective good. This builds trust and strengthens social bonds. When you see your neighbor giving up their best goat for the sake of bringing rain for everyone's crops, you know you can rely on them. It weeds out the free riders, those who would benefit from the group's success without contributing. You can't fake a sacrifice. This shared experience, often filled with intense emotion, fear, and awe, forges an incredibly strong group identity. It turns a loose collection of families into a cohesive, unified society, ready to face external threats together. Second, it signals to other groups. Imagine you're a neighboring tribe and you see a community performing a massive, costly, and terrifying sacrificial ritual. What does that tell you? It tells you this group is highly organized, deeply united, and capable of extreme acts. It signals their strength and solidarity. You'd probably think twice before trying to raid their lands or steal their resources. In a brutal world, these rituals acted as a psychological deterrent, a way of saying, "We are strong, we are one, and we are not to be messed with." The fear inspired by the ritual was a form of defense. This helps us understand how suffering itself became sacred. In a world without written contracts or police forces, how do you ensure loyalty? How do you create a society where people will die for each other? You do it through shared emotionally intense experiences. The pain, the fear, the blood, these weren't just random acts of cruelty. They were the very tools used to build the first large-scale human societies. By making commitment painful and public, these rituals ensured that the promises made were deeply felt and unlikely to be broken. The suffering wasn't the point, it was the proof. It was the price of admission into a strong cooperative group that could outcompete its rivals. The sacredness of suffering was the glue that held these fragile early civilizations together. The awe and terror of these rituals bound people together in a way that mere promises never could. It created a shared reality, a collective story written in blood and fire. Before laws, before governments, before civilization as we know it, sacrifice was a mechanism for creating trust, enforcing cooperation, and ensuring survival. It's a dark and difficult part of our human history, but understanding it reveals something profound about our own social evolution. It shows us how, in the face of overwhelming fear, our ancestors found a way to build societies strong enough to endure. It's a stark reminder that the foundations of cooperation and community were sometimes built on the most terrifying of acts. Have you ever wondered where the idea of a spiritual leader comes from? The wise woman on the edge of the village, the mystic who speaks to the gods, the shaman who journeys to other worlds. For tens of thousands of years, these figures have been central to human societies. Today, we're diving deep into the shamanic mind to explore the origins of spiritual authority, and the answer might be found in the very wiring of our brains. Before priests, prophets, or organized religions, there were shamans. These weren't just storytellers. They were the original doctors, psychologists, and guides to the unseen world. Their authority didn't come from a book or a building, but from direct, personal experiences that took them far beyond the boundaries of everyday reality. The core of the shamanic practice is the ability to enter an altered state of consciousness, a trance. It's in this state that they believe they can communicate with spirits, retrieve lost souls, and find the causes of illness and misfortune. But what exactly is this trance state? It's not sleep, and it's not just daydreaming. It's a profound shift in perception, often involving vivid hallucinations and a feeling of leaving one's own body. For early humans living in a world full of dangers and mysteries, these experiences were not seen as mere imagination. They were considered journeys into a deeper, more fundamental layer of reality. The shaman was the one who could navigate this other world and bring back crucial information for the survival and well-being of the tribe. They were the interpreters of dreams, the seers of the future, and the healers of both body and soul. So how did they get there? How did early shamans learn to switch off their normal waking consciousness and enter these extraordinary states? They developed a powerful toolkit of techniques, many of which are still used by indigenous shamans today. One of the most universal methods is rhythm. The relentless, monotonous beat of a drum or the shaking of a rattle, sustained for long periods, can have a hypnotic effect on the brain. This rhythmic driving can synchronize brainwaves, pushing the mind into a trance. Think about how you can lose yourself in the beat of music at a concert now. Imagine that effect amplified over hours. With the specific intention of journeying to another reality, another key component was sensory deprivation. Picture a shaman retreating to a dark cave, far from the light and noise of the community. In the silence and the blackness, the brain, starved of external stimuli, begins to generate its own. This is a well-documented phenomenon. People in sensory deprivation tanks often report vivid hallucinations. For the shaman, this wasn't a bug. It was a feature. It was a way to open the doors of perception and access the inner landscape of the mind, which they interpreted as the spirit world. Fasting, sleep deprivation, and enduring extreme temperatures were also used to push the body and mind to their limits, triggering these altered states. And then, of course, there are the plants. Many shamanic traditions around the world utilize psychoactive plants, often called entheogens, which means generating the divine within. From the peyote cactus in North America to ayahuasca in the Amazon, these plants contain powerful compounds that dramatically alter brain chemistry. They can induce intense visions, emotional breakthroughs, and a profound sense of connection to the universe. For the societies that used them, these weren't recreational drugs. They were sacred medicines, powerful teachers that provided direct access to the divine. The shaman was the master of these plants, knowing how to prepare them, the correct dosage, and how to guide someone through the often overwhelming experience. Their knowledge of botany was inseparable from their spiritual role. This all might sound mystical, and it is, but modern neuroscience is beginning to provide a fascinating framework for understanding these experiences. When we look at what's happening in the brain trance, meditation, or under the influence of psychedelics, we see some remarkable patterns. A key area is the default mode network. This is the part of your brain that's active when you're thinking about yourself, worrying about the future, or dwelling on the past. It's essentially the seat of your ego. Studies have shown that many shamanic techniques, from drumming to psychedelics, significantly decrease activity in the default mode network. When this network quiets down, the sense of being a separate, isolated self can dissolve. This is often described as ego death, or a feeling of oneness with everything. The rigid boundaries between self and other, between your mind and the world, begin to blur. At the same time, connectivity between other parts of the brain that don't normally communicate increases. Your visual cortex might start talking to your auditory cortex, leading to synesthesia, seeing sounds or hearing colors. The parts of your brain responsible for emotion and memory might become hyperconnected, leading to a life review experience or profound emotional release. So these spiritual experiences, these journeys to other worlds, have a neurological basis. They are not just made up. They are real, tangible shifts in brain function that produce profound changes in consciousness. The shaman was, in a way, the original neuronavigator, an expert in manipulating their own brain activity to access these states. Their spiritual authority was built on their ability to reliably induce these experiences and interpret them in a way that was meaningful and beneficial for their community. They were the bridge between the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknown. Think about the implications. The human brain seems to have a natural, built-in capacity for spiritual experience. The states of consciousness that form the basis of the first spiritual traditions are not supernatural. They are a fundamental part of our human potential. The shaman's journey isn't just a relic of the past. It points to a deep-seated human need for meaning, connection, and transcendence. It tells us that the origins of religion and spirituality are not just about beliefs or doctrines, but about direct, transformative experience. The authority of the first spiritual leaders came from their courage to explore the furthest reaches of the human mind and bring back wisdom from the other side. The shaman's world was one where the mind and the cosmos were not separate, where healing the soul was as important as healing the body, and where direct experience was the ultimate source of truth. By understanding the neurological roots of their practices, we don't diminish their power. We gain a deeper appreciation for the incredible sophistication of these ancient traditions and the enduring human quest to understand the nature of consciousness itself. Have you ever wondered why we knock on wood for good luck, or why we raise a glass to toast a special occasion? These seemingly small habits are echoes from a time long past, a time when ritual was not just a part of life but was life itself. Today, we re-journeying back tens of thousands of years to uncover how the rituals of our prehistoric ancestors evolved into the very fabric of human culture. This is the story of how ancient beliefs became our modern identity. Imagine a world shrouded in mystery, where every sunrise, every storm, and every successful hunt was a powerful, unexplained event. For early humans, survival was a daily struggle against the forces of nature. To make sense of this unpredictable world and to try and influence it, they developed rituals. These weren't just random actions. They were carefully performed sequences meant to ensure a good hunt, a plentiful harvest, or protection from unseen dangers. Think of the famous cave paintings in places like Lascaux, France. For a long time, we thought they were just art, but many experts now believe these were ritualistic spaces. The act of painting a bison on a cave wall wasn't just decorative. It was a magical act, a way to capture the spirit of the animal and guarantee a successful hunt. This was more than superstition. It was a technology of hope, a way to exert some control over a world that often felt uncontrollable. Initially, these rituals were tied directly to survival. A dance to call the rain, a prayer before a hunt, an offering to appease a powerful spirit. But something incredible happened over thousands of years. As communities grew and became more stable, these survival rituals started to transform. They were no longer just about the next meal. They became about us. They became tradition. The ritual that once ensured a successful hunt evolved into a communal feast celebrating that hunt. The act of gathering became just as important as the outcome. This is the critical turning point, when ritual shifts from a tool for survival to a glue for society. It's the moment when a sequence of actions starts to carry a shared meaning, passed down from one generation to the next. The focus moved from influencing the external world to strengthening the internal world of the community. With this shift came an explosion of symbolism. Our ancestors didn't have written language, so they communicated complex ideas through symbols. A carved figure wasn't just a piece of wood. It could represent a fertility goddess, an ancestral spirit, or the power of nature. A circle drawn in the sand could symbolize the cycle of life and death, the sun, or the community itself. These symbols were the building blocks of a shared reality. When a group of people agree that a particular object or gesture means something more than what it is, they create a collective identity. They are no longer just a random collection of individuals. They are a tribe, a clan, a people, bound together by a common understanding of the world. Art became the vessel for this symbolic language. Venus figurines, with their exaggerated features, weren't just ancient sculptures. They were powerful symbols of fertility and survival, understood across vast regions. Megalithic structures like Stonehenge weren't just impressive feats of engineering. They were cosmic calendars, ceremonial centers, and monuments to the collective power of the community. They broadcast a message: we are here. We have a place in this universe, and we understand it together. This creation of a shared symbolic world had a profound psychological impact, one that we've inherited. Belief systems give us a framework for understanding our existence. They answer the big questions: where do we come from? Why are we here? What happens when we die? For our prehistoric ancestors, these belief systems, expressed through ritual and myth, provided a sense of order in a chaotic world. They offered comfort in the face of death and a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. This need for meaning, for a story that makes sense of our lives, is a fundamental part of the human psyche. It's a psychological inheritance. When we feel a sense of awe looking at a grand cathedral or a quiet reverence in a silent forest, we are tapping into the same neural pathways that our ancestors carved out through millennia of ritual practice. Our brains are literally wired for belief, for seeking patterns, and for finding meaning in the world around us. This is not a weakness. It's a core part of our cognitive toolkit, a legacy of our evolutionary journey. So how do these ancient practices still shape our lives today? The answer is everywhere. Think about our modern rituals. A wedding ceremony isn't just about signing a legal document. It's a public declaration of commitment, filled with symbolic acts, the exchange of rings, the sharing of a kiss, the gathering of family and friends. These elements echo ancient bonding rituals that solidified social ties within a tribe. A graduation ceremony with its caps, gowns, and processions is a rite of passage, marking the transition from one life stage to another, much like the initiation ceremonies of our ancestors. Even our national holidays, with their parades, fireworks, and specific foods, are modern-day versions of ancient seasonal festivals that brought communities together to celebrate and reinforce their shared identity. The handshake, the salute, the toast, all these gestures are fossilized rituals. Their original meanings often lost to time, but their social function remaining intact. They are shortcuts to establishing trust, showing respect, and building rapport. We perform them automatically, without a second thought, because they are so deeply woven into our cultural DNA. Even our internal, psychological world is molded by this legacy. The comfort we find in routine, the sense of belonging we get from being part of a group, whether it's a sports team, a fan community, or a nation, and our innate search for meaning and purpose are all echoes of our prehistoric past. The rituals may have changed, the symbols may have evolved, but the fundamental human needs they address remain the same. The need for community, the need for meaning, and the need for a sense of control and order in our lives. From the shaman's dance in a firelit cave to the astronaut's pre-launch checklist, we are a species that thrives on ritual. It's how we turn the chaos of existence into the order of culture. It's how we tell ourselves who we are. So the next time you find yourself participating in a tradition, take a moment to think about its deep roots. You're not just going through the motions. You're taking part in a story that began tens of thousands of years ago, a story that connects you to every human who has ever lived. Thanks for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this exploration of our ancient past fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into what makes us human. And let me know in the comments what modern rituals you think have the deepest ancient roots. I'd love to read your thoughts. See you next time.